Hey guys, hi, welcome back once again, and this time I wish to address a whole lot of things into this video by trying to address the process of me reclaiming myself at a certain point in time, owning myself and belonging to myself at a certain point in time, which was a resultant of a certain competition that I have participated in, which is held by the UBI, United by Ink. And in keeping with with this competition, we are given a topic every single day, and we are supposed to write on it, either in the form of poetry or a short poem or a quote, and we are supposed to submit it by 4 o'clock, by 4 p.m. And it so happened that for the first 10 days, I was in this flow state while I was writing what I was writing for the topics that were given. And the topics were beautiful. They were creatively very challenging. And therefore, when I was writing it down, I came into that zone wherein time and space did lose its essence, where, the entire thing, time and space, came together, or it even disintegrated, wherein even 30 minutes to an hour and a half looked like or felt like a moment's elapse. So it actually felt like that though an hour and a half had passed by the clock, it was just a moment for me that had flown by. And I was in that state till the 11th day, where I was struggling. And the topic that was given, I was able to connect with that topic internally. I was able to picturize it. I was able to see and view the bigger picture. I was able to see the collage. I was able to see the painting. But I could not construct it. I could not bring myself to, put it across. The words were not coming. They were not flowing. I was having an internal battle. I knew the collage, I knew the painting that I wanted to paint, but I did not know the colors. I did not know what colors to use. I did not know what words to use to communicate what I was feeling. And so there was a lot of resistance that was happening. And somewhere at a certain point in time, there was this little voice that said that, just let's not do it. If it's not coming out the way I want it to come out, let's not submit a bad project. Let's just not do it. It's okay to step back aside. And then there was this other voice, the voice of the ego, the alter self, the hustler, the intruder, the provider, the protector. So all of these things, it came up and it said, no, you've participated in the competition. You can't back out. You've got to put something out, otherwise what would be your saving grace? You've got to put something out, otherwise what face will you show? What would you say? So that was that hustler talking. And somewhere I diminished the other voice and I said, okay, let's do it. I have participated. I have given my name. I have, said that I will be a participant in this race. So let's run the race, even if I'm limping. And even if I don't do the best of the job, I will still go in. And so I went in and I did construct something and I submitted it. And I wasn't really proud of what I had submitted. And quite honestly speaking, if I had to read that out even for myself, I don't think so I would have read it. So, there was this voice that said, okay, you've submitted it. There was this other voice in me that said, you didn't do a good job, you're not proud of it. Then there was this other voice that said that, would you show it even to yourself? And then there was this other voice that said, no, I won't do it. Are you proud of what you've done? Are you proud of yourself? And the first reaction, the ego reaction, the hustler reaction was like, no, am not proud of myself. And somewhere instinctively, there was this little voice that said, you're not proud of the work that you have done. It's just one piece of work. It's just a fumble on your part, and it's okay. Doesn't mean that you are bad. Doesn't mean that you can't be proud of yourself. So I understood the difference between shame and guilt. My guilt said that I did not do a good job, that a project was not lived up to its expectation. While there was this other voice of shame that said, you are not good. And I was able to differentiate between the two. And yet, the ego wasn't satisfied. The alter self, the hustler, the intruder, the protector, it just wasn't satisfied. And while I was in the process of writing, there were certain other things that were coming up. So this hustler, the intruder, the alter self was hammering, was like, do it, sit with it, think of something. And for the first time in 10 days, there was not a voice that came, feel it, and then write it. There was this voice that said, think about it, put something across. So I did. And I realized that ego sits over here and here. It's just a place that occupies our being over here. And I started feeling heavy. And I realized that it feels when that hustler is inside of us, and when that hustler is taking over, when that hustler is trying to push you and the rest of you is trying to fight it or trying to resist it. There's this battle that you feel inside, and it feels heavy on the upper part. There's also this mental chatter that constantly goes on. So I find that the hustler is a good fighting mechanism, but probably it's not the best mechanism to thrive in life. So yes, I felt my ego here, and I could feel it traveling over here because my muscles were now feeling tight and heavy. And I was feeling a little stiff. And yet I rolled my shoulders, I shook my head, I wriggled my arm and went to work. And there was also this construct that we all have been put across, that we all have come across, that we all resonate with, that if you can't do it really well, if it is not perfect, if it is not your best job, don't put it out. Give it all that you've got. And fortunately or unfortunately, I was not able to give it my all. Whatever I had put across was through my head, but it wasn't through my heart and through my body and through my soul. Yes, my hands had helped me to put it across, to type it out and to submit it, but my body was not feeling the flow of it. My heart was not in it. My soul was not in it. So somewhere I also realized that there is this concept of perfection, that if it is not attained, you really can't do it. You really are not good enough. And that is the voice that I was hearing within me. So I deconstructed, because I also realized that probably a lot of creatives and a lot of us are perfectionists, either striving as perfectionists or to be perfectionists, or recovering perfectionists, wherein we have realized it really doesn't help much. In fact, it's more of a hindrance rather than an aid. So we are perfectionists, most of us, to some degrees or others, either recovering or aiming towards being one. And probably that is where Brené Brown, when she beautifully says that perfectionism is a mechanism which tells you that if you do things well, if you live well, if you behave well, if you eat well, if you do this well, then you can reduce, or you can render yourself out from shame, because you'll then be able to say that I did job perfectly well. That there will be nobody who will be able to tell you that you did not do a good job. That you'll be able to save yourself from shame. So I was trying to do that. The perfectionist in me, I would like to call it a recovering perfectionist, so that it helps me. Maybe it is that ego aspect of me, but yes, that is what I would like to believe in me. So, and maybe I hope that I move towards that, a recovering one. So, I was able to own my own need for perfection and validation, and even my shame attached to my perfection, and I was able to put it out. Did I own my work completely? No. But then when I, shared this with my daughter and one or two more of my friends, my daughter came forward and told me that, Ma, it's okay. It's okay to let it go. You did try. And you cannot recreate the same thing. Even a creative cannot recreate its own stuff, cannot recreate its own thing all over again. It even cannot create its own self all over again. For there can be no duplication even for the creative person itself. Which also means that an original is always an original. And a copy will always be a copy. It may be a perfect copy, but it's still a copy. And I had to let it go, and it was difficult. Because up till now, whatever I was writing, I had been able to put it across in probably 30 to 40 minutes to an hour and a half, after writing it down, after reading it, rereading it, and editing it. And here I was sitting with this piece for close to 2+ hours, and I had written 11 drafts, and I just wasn't able to get it together. And I was really struggling hard. Finally, I did put out something, and like I said, am I proud of that work? No, I'm not. Do I own it today? Yes, I do. Is it one of my best creations that I would probably show it to myself? No, I would not, if it came from the ego perspective. But if it came from the other perspective, I would be able to own it, because I would say that yes, most of the times I can own my work, and there are few times when I'm not so proud of it. But that's equally okay. Because what I also learnt is that life is lived forward, but is always learnt in hindsight. Which also means that we will keep fumbling, that we will keep messing up. But it is only through those processes that we learn more about ourselves, that we learn more about life, and not life just outside of us or as the process, but life that we embody, that a life that embodies us. For I am life speaking to this body, an embodiment of itself. So when I was able to share that, to share my own need for perfection, to share my own shame related to perfection, to share it even with myself and a few other people, I was able to release that grip that I had on myself. I was holding myself, trying to contort it into a perfect thing. the best version that I could have projected or put across. And it just wasn't happening, and I had to let it go. And though I had let it go to a certain degree by submitting it, I was emotionally not able to let go of myself. And when I shared all of my shame, all of my triggers that were attached to that particular article, I was able to release my own self. My ego was able to release me. My ego, in fact, sat beside me. Head down, I could feel it like that. I could see myself sitting beside me. Head held down, smiling, shaking its head and going like, breathing it out and saying, thank you for just letting me breathe. I was trying too hard. I was hustling hard. And I was trying to project what I had done till date, which was not projection, which was a flow state of being, but I was trying to project that flow, and it just wasn't happening because my head, my heart and my body and my soul were not aligned, were not in alignment. So obviously it could not flow. And there was a resistance from the feeling heart and the hustler head and the resistant body. But finally, when it was shared, I could breathe, my ego could breathe. And I looked up, and my head felt light, my neck felt light, my shoulder felt light. And I was able to move and say, a load lifted off me. I lost grip of my own self. I let loose of myself. I allowed me to breathe. For I owned me at that point in time. For I belonged to my own self at that point in time. And I released myself from the cages that I had put on me. So let's try and understand more of ourselves, and probably hearing our own selves in any which ways, whether connecting to the people that we can truly be ourselves with, whether it's writing, whether it's, talking to our own selves, recording our own voice and then listening to our own selves, helps understand us better, helps understand our own triggers better. And once we start belonging more to ourselves by understanding our own trigger points, we are able to release the control that ego wants to have on us. And it's not a bad thing. Ego is not a bad thing. It is just an armor that is there which protects us from the world when we fear that we are going to be attacked. It's just a hustler that keeps telling us that we've got to do it, we've got to do it, we've got to fight the battle, we've got to win the battle, we've got to be the best versions of ourselves. And it's not wrong. But it's a very small aspect of ourselves. It's a very small fighter in us. And we need to be grateful for that fighter, towards that fighter. But we need to understand its place. We need to tell it, you don't need to fight all the battles. And it's okay to let go of some battles. You don't need to keep fighting a battle with your own self all the time. And maybe if you do, you need to understand it for your own self so that you understand your own mechanisms, your own mechanics, your own stuff better. And once we start doing that, I think we are able to hold a more compassionate inquiry towards our own selves. And we create that space not only for ourselves, but also the people that we interact with, that we love, that we bond with. So let's try and do that more often, and I will see you once again next week. Till then, stay tuned in.